that just quit. Well, tried to convert. Start the video.
Put the button down and do left. Well, yep, down the bottom left. To the cameras.
No.
We good? All right, I will go ahead and call this study session to order at 6:34 p.m. We can start with the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Williams. Reed. Jackson.
Here.
Lawler. Lanu.
Here.
Williamson.
Here.
And Mayor Snyder.
Here. If we can all remember to turn our cell phones off or silent. So we are meeting in regards to discussing the city manager evaluation form itself. In your packet, you received a copy of the evaluation form that the city of Battle Creek uses. Just as a template to see if we would like to change ours, how we would like to change ours. You know, definitely, you know, what we see good about this and what we might be able to exclude. So I'll go ahead and turn this over to Mayor Pro Tem Jackson, since she's wanted to bring this as a topic of discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to go over to, let's go to page 21. And I'm gonna do whatever you want to jump in, you can, but I like to go to 21. And just looking at their evaluation form, it's easier, precise, where you can put everything, if you want to put everything, lump it into one category, basically like the older one. And it's just easy to evaluate. I thought that was kind of, I guess that would be like old style. If we could just bring some things up to the new, it's just easier to read. The format of the fire exceeds, meets, and minimum and unacceptable would still read the same as it's a 5-4 in the scoring. So what I just thought that it would just be a good time, everybody could just look over it if you haven't looked over it. Because on 23, it gives out some of the different information on it. But any thoughts, any concerns, dislikes, whatever, no hurt feelings, it's just that this was kind of what I just wanted to go over and thought that this would be a better form. Not, it doesn't have to have everything that it has in it, but just the individual evaluation summary sheet to me is better than what has been put before us. And it's easier to understand.
So I was gonna add that I read through the evaluation tool. I really think Battle Creek is a pretty sophisticated system set up. I believe they have a few more commissioners or city council members than we do. The city manager also has a larger budget than we do. So one of the things I was looking at inside this, at least this evaluation sheet, is I would take out a lot of the Battle Creek specific things. Some of the things in here we don't have. Or I would lump some things together because certain functions of city government are actually grouped together in Albion where they're spread out in Albion, in Battle Creek. But overall, I like the format of it. I have just a couple of concerns. So my first concern is that I would like everybody on council to at least be able to digest it and then maybe submit their changes in writing to run them by Cullen, just because any changes we make, we want to make sure that they're appropriate for an HR function. And then the second thing I had a concern about is like, this is the perfect timing for the start of the second year of city manager Snyder's contract. I would hate to implement something like this at the tail end of the first year, because we're then changing the way in which we grade the city manager versus the tool that we're already using. So love this tool. I would hope that we'd use it during the second year of the contract, because then everyone knows what the metrics are and what and how we're gonna grade them and what the new pieces are. If we implement these now, there's a couple of pieces in here with feedback from other departments and places in the city that weren't part of the beginning part of the process. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know upfront that we were gonna get feedback from all these different places. And I just think changing up the tool would be the same as changing up the goals and things like that at the last minute. So I do love this tool. Whenever you go to MML, they talk about Battle Creek. They do talk about Rochester Hills. They talk about some places that are pretty sophisticated with how they work with their city manager to do evaluation. This is a much more collaborative tool. It also provides really specific guidance on what we should be looking for. Our tool is very plain. It has a couple of sentences for each thing, which got us, which leads us into trouble every time grading our city manager. So I really appreciated the specificity that this one has. My concern is that if we change it now, I mean, the year is up in March, I believe. We're coming up on a year. I think this should be implemented for the year 2 moving forward. And in order to use this, we're going to have to take action in council to adopt the new metric with all of the Albion branding and things and all the Albion specific things. So I really appreciate Councilmember Jackson's and Councilmember Lanew's foresight in looking at some of the things that got us in trouble in the last eval and trying to improve on the next time to move things forward.
So would the page 21 be the only page that we use? Or is it everything that follows page 21?
It would be everything else that followed 21.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Just didn't want to take everybody all the way through it, like he said, it did
No.
different parts.
Just wanted to make sure I was clear on what exactly you were going to use.
And the other suggestion that I had was that we would have a little, if you want to call it subgroup, or a few get together and would go over and go down and put some information down inside of these different goals and then in other areas, and then come back with that information, and then we review it again, and then we come together and agree with it. That was that was my thoughts about the whole thing. So then it, you've already looked at it, a few eyes looked at it, and we all came back together in a study session, looked at it and reviewed it, and then went forward. And not to just jump right into it. Yeah. That's all.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. I really appreciate your feedback, Councilman Williams, and with regard to the fairness that we need to be sure of in terms of the timeline. Part of the prompting to this was a conversation with Mayor Snyder and Mayor Pro Tem Jackson regarding those troubles that we have inherently run into as a community, and just wanting to have some way to improve this for all of our benefit. So I'm hoping that while it shouldn't impact the literal process or the grading of our city manager, and definitely not incorporating something like a community survey, there's maybe things of this that the subcommittee could determine would benefit us in this first evaluation. So that was my whole purpose. Because as Councilman Williamson said, there's a lot of issues that we've run into. And I think that the biggest thing that I thought was very supportive is that there's an actual system. So like page 21 demonstrates that we would not actually be giving examples that we have to like monitor and somehow track of the city manager, but there's a system in place that we've all agreed upon, and we evaluate based on that. I think that that's much more fair to expect of a voluntary council member to evaluate than expecting a council member to come up with examples. And then with regard to the actual goals that we've established, all of us being able to pick a project that fits within that goal is something I could see that would be very helpful for future evaluation, so that we could all have a greater sense of how goals are being met. So those were the biggest things that I was taking away from this specific sophisticated evaluation.
So would you and Mayor Pro Tem Jackson like to work on kind of picking the pieces of Battle Creek's format to fit what would be relevant for us here in this council? And definitely you wanted to have a third person to assist you, definitely that would be something y'all could work together, that third person maybe.
I would like to be the third person if possible. I would like to be the third person if possible, if you will allow. I would love to help work on this and make sure that we can bring something that meets everybody's criteria, or 99.9%.
City Manager, right?
I just want to clarify, are we going to use this for my evaluation in March or for year 2? Because I am going to start doing my self-evaluation to make sure that it is provided to you, and that's per our current evaluation form that was used for my 6th month. So I'd just like to echo what Councilmember Williamson said. I don't feel that it's necessarily fair to switch up the tool that is used to measure my performance halfway through or at the tail end of my first year of the contract. I'm not opposed to the council making any changes to the evaluation form, but I would agree with utilizing this for year 2. So it gives you all enough time to really finalize and make sure it fits the city of Albion instead of rather trying to rush it, because I will be submitting that to you within the next few weeks.
Councilman Woodson.
And if so, while I tend to agree, my first point was that I'd like to do this for the 2nd year. I think that since it's going to be a new tool, and I do think that most people want to move towards a new tool, if I'm sensing the room. I would like to do something similar to what we did in the first year, but have it be an informal, non-file related 6-month evaluation in year 2, so that we can practice using this form. And that way everybody, I feel like if we've never used it before, we've never worked together on this format. If whoever negotiated with the city manager their contract, we could have meet with them again, and if they'll agree to it, we could do like a 6-month in the 2nd year informal, again, non-file. We're not gonna put this in the personnel file, but this is gonna help us see, she can gauge where she's at with the goals that we have. We can see how to use this tool a little bit better. And then that will help us determine the final evaluation for year 2. And I'm hoping that Councilmember Lanu and Councilmember Jackson would be open to that type of way to phase it in, rather than just start it at the tail end of the first year.
Hi, folks. So we have a new, well, it's not new, but we're doing a hybrid for our meetings. So you can definitely join, only council can be in chamber because of COVID. Yeah, that's okay.
We didn't know.
That's all right. But you can definitely join virtually. There's a
Okay.
link out there.
Okay.
So that you can
All right.
hop on if you want to make comments, you can definitely
Okay.
do that at the
Thank
time.
Okay, sorry, we didn't see
That's
that.
okay.
Yeah, I think Councilmember Williamson has a great idea. And I know this was just a discussion, I know. Actually more so to get in the habit of having study sessions before the whole meeting. But because of our conversation, I think we were all hoping that there was some way we could improve the process before March, but to City Manager Snyder's point, we don't want to make it harder on you at the last minute. I think the whole point was to alleviate all of our concerns regarding this inherently flawed process. So as you're going, if you see something that you think could help, I would rather take that recommendation from you, and then we can decide if that's something we want to vote on. But no, I think if you don't find any value in changing anything at this point, then we should just figure out how to make it as effective of an evaluation as possible in March.
Yeah. So do we want to make it a goal to have something put together by March? And Colin, how many times would we have to review and agree upon this in order to make it the formal evaluation form?
Well, it's not like an ordinance where you have to have, 2 votes in effect. I mean, realistically, you can just agree to approve it once you land on a specific, yeah.
Sounds good, so you all are charged. So good.
Sound good.
Councilwoman Reed or Councilman Williams, do you have any comments to add to this?
Not at all.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so we're good with this, and since we have like about 10 minutes left in our study session, we can definitely look at the agenda items. So that again, we can kind of get in the routine of asking questions about what is on the agenda during our study session to get those out of the way before we actually get to the formal meeting to vote. And Councilwoman Lanu, I know you had sent an email earlier. Did you get that?
Yes,
Okay.
City Manager Snyder responded with regard to the MDOT contract. I just wanted to clarify the scope of the project itself. When I saw that it was from Superior Street to Mingo, I wasn't aware that the lane markings, all of those would be updated, which is great. But I just wanted to clarify that there will be some adjustments between Superior and Ionia, but the project of street parking starts from Ionia down to Mingo, or on-street parking rather. Thank you.
Yes.
So the one sticky wicket here is ordinarily, I would say, you move in and discuss other items, however, you don't have any other items on the agenda.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to add something to the study session agenda, you need to add it by supermajority vote. And you've also got, I don't think there's anything on for public comment, but you also have to have your public comment as part of your study session as well.
City Attorney Harkness, what would that, I was curious about that. What would the agenda item say in order to be able to have a discussion about?
So generally what other municipalities will do is they'll put, granted, we're working with a half hour where the other municipalities that have to do that do longer periods of time, but they'll put several of the items from the main meeting agenda just on the study session and get through as many as they can. So that then when they get to them in the regular session, it's like, anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, let's go. So, I mean, I think it would probably behoove council if you put the more complicated, more discussion intensive items on your study session agenda that you know are going to come up on your main session agenda.
Yeah, Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we're in agreement. I thought that's why we voted to come in earlier, so that we could go through the items. So I would suggest, well, I would ask if we could do that going forward. I don't know how we go about doing that, but I thought that's why we were.
Yeah. So I guess moving forward by what Cullen is stating, that when we have our study session agenda, we're going to have to list out specific items from the formal council agenda to the study session, so that the public can know what we're going to be discussing.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. City Attorney Harkness, is it possible, say we have a very long agenda or we're not sure which items would be the ones that would need discussion, is it possible to have discussion, regular council meeting agenda items, like to leave it open-ended? Is that a possibility?
Just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. So you're saying that you have a discussion item on your study session, but then also have discussion and possibly action on the main session as well. Is that what you're asking?
To leave the agenda item for the study session, just the discussion of the meeting. So like Mayor Snyder just did, whatever the questions might be, it's not specific to an agenda item, it's rather the entire regular meeting.
Okay, so let me just make sure I understand. So you're basically saying, could you have the entire regular session agenda be your study session, even if you don't get to it all? Yes.
Okay, so you can help us make the wording, because I'm just thinking, like, I don't want to make more work for you to have to figure out which agenda items, if there is the case of a long agenda.
So here's what I would do, just to simplify it, to cover your bases in terms of giving the public notice / you as a council being able to discuss items. I would just list the same items you have on your main agenda, I mean, sans, you know, all the really easy stuff as your agenda items on your study session. That way, you can discuss them all, you know, if you don't get to them all, that's fine, you just deal with them in your main session. But that way, it's all there, and you can just roll right into discussion on the next thing if you finish something early.
Okay, that clarifies, thank you.
City Clerk, do we have anybody on for public comment?
We do.
Garrett Brown, 1016 South Superior Street. I was just going to agree with the city attorney there. You can probably have it on the study session agenda just to say, like, you know, some kind of language that says, you know, the council members at their discretion can, you know, ask for discussion on any items in for the following council meeting. And I think that's a good idea because if someone's not familiar with a particular item, they can kind of learn more about it and not have the regular meeting go super long. So thank you.
So we are doing hybrid for public. That's why nobody else is here.
Okay.
So only council's allowed in chamber, but you can definitely join. And if you wanted to make comments, you can make comments through the hybrid.
And I almost didn't come.
Oh.
I was like, oh.
Yeah,
No worries.
That's okay, thanks.
Sorry.
Do you want to put a note or? Okay. Any other public comments? Do we have any other items for discussion, Councilman Wilson?
Nothing for discussion. My apologies. I'm gonna be a little late to the general session meeting. I have a work call that I have to take in the office, but I'll join it late.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move, support.
City Clerk Bennett?
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Reed, Jackson,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
And Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Study session closed at 6:56 PM.